Hey everybody, welcome to Get Ready With Me and Talk About Stuff. My name is Stephanie. How are you today? What are your plans for the weekend? Are you having a good time? I really hope so. I hope that your day has been great so far and that you really enjoy this video because I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. Before we get started, I do want to let you know that there are links in the description for everything I'm going to talk about today, and there are also links in the description if you'd like to support me either through you can send money through PayPal for Venmo, but I would really love it if you bought some art, and I left a link for that in the description as well. So today we are going to be talking about Easter. We are going to be talking about the origins of the holiday and what has happened since the days so very long ago when these celebrations started taking place. So what is Easter? Well, in modern times, Easter is a holiday that is celebrated by Christians to honor the resurrection of Jesus on the third day after his death, when he supposedly rose again. And this happened in year 30 Common Era, or AD. Depends on what verbiage you like to use. Now, for others, Easter is not a religious celebration at all. It is just a day to get together with family, to have an Easter egg hunt, just another reason to, an excuse to have some fun together. Either of those reasons is fine, and we're going to talk about why that is. So where did Easter begin? Well, Easter has its roots, as many Christian holidays do. It has its roots in pagan traditions as well as some Jewish traditions. And with the events happening before, on, and after Easter, following closely with those pagan and Jewish traditions. Easter falls on a different date every year because it falls typically on the first full moon after March 21st. I don't know if that's exactly right because I don't imagine the first full moon always falls on a Sunday and Easter always happens on a Sunday. But again, it is typically something that happens shortly after we celebrate the beginning of spring, and that again is related to its pagan roots. So the first full moon, traditionally the Easter celebration, as it was in pre-Christian era, was something that was celebrated to honor the beginning of spring. Now, we're going to get into in a few minutes who and what they were celebrating back then, but I just want to give you an overview of what happens in modern times. And we're going to take we're going to travel time and go back into the past. So now, in some denominations, after so they celebrate Easter, and it marks the beginning of what is known as Eastertide, or the Easter season. And that season for a lot of denominations ends on Pentecost Sunday. Now, if I remember my Bible stories accurately, so according to what it says, Jesus rose from the dead, and then he was with his disciples and others for, is it 40 days? Maybe it's 50. I really don't know, but it's somewhere between 40 and 50. Let's compromise and say he was there for 45 days. I'm sure Jesus would be okay with that because it's the effort that counts, right? I think. Anyway, so in Eastern Orthodox branches of Christianity, Easter marks the beginning of, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, Pascha, which is the Greek word for Passover, and this ends on the holiday known as the Feast of Ascension. So there are a few different traditions celebrated by those who are Christians, but they celebrate in different ways. Now, in some branches of Christianity, anything but the most strict religious interpretations of the holiday are not celebrated at all. That means no Easter eggs, no Easter bunny, none of that. And we're going to talk about all of that as we continue down this rabbit hole. Do you see what I did there? Pretty funny, huh? So despite its significance to Christians, it still, for a lot of people, remains a very secular holiday. It's a holiday that, as I mentioned, is really just about fun, having a good time, you know, setting up an Easter egg hunt for the kids, give, you know, an excuse to spoil the kids with tons of candy, an excuse to get together and have a really good meal, you know, and again, that is all fine. And the reason for that is because the celebrations that we base our Easter celebration on today actually has its roots going back thousands of years to the pre-Christian world. I know it's hard to believe that Christianity was not always one of the dominant religions, but it's true, it wasn't. So there are pagan traditions that were basically absorbed into this holiday, and there were also some Jewish traditions that were absorbed into the holiday that created what we now know today as our Easter celebration. So what is in a name? I think understanding the origins of Easter begins with understanding the origins of the name itself. The word Easter, there are a few different theories as to where it came from, but I think the most popular theory, the most widely accepted theory, is that the celebration of Easter was co-opted from the pagan celebration of the goddess Astra or Ostra, depending on who you are. And I should have done this before I put my foundation on, but I just started yip-yapping away and completely forgot to do this. So here we are. But anyway, so Astra or Ostra was a goddess that was celebrated. She was celebrated to honor spring and fertility. So every spring there would be big celebrations to honor the goddess Astra. She was an Anglo-Saxon goddess. She was a goddess in England. And obviously there are various similar goddesses elsewhere, but the one that we're focusing on today is the Anglo-Saxon goddess of Astra. And I want to say Bede the Venerable in the 6th century. He was the author of the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, and he said the name most definitely comes from the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring and fertility, Astra. Now, other historians have asserted that the name is derived from the Latin phrase in albis, which is the plural of alba, which means dawn, and that word became Astrum in the Old High German, which is the precursor to modern English. Not the band, the language. I think that the most widely held beliefs are often widely held for a reason, so I'm thinking that it probably is more related to the goddess Astra than the Latin phrase that became a High German phrase meaning dawn. But that's just my assumption. And the reason I think that is because a lot of the holidays that are like high holy days in the Christian tradition are days that were co-opted from pagan traditions that were simply absorbed into the church as a means of claiming that. So that is why I am assuming, correctly or not, that the Easter holiday as we know it today comes from the goddess Astra. Now, due to the pagan roots, as I just mentioned, due to the pagan roots of many modern Eastern traditions, some sects of Christianity do not celebrate Easter at all, or if they do celebrate it, it is focused solely on the religious aspect of Easter. Now, some of the traditions that we have that we just consider part of the holiday have roots that run deep into pagan traditions. For example, the act of painting the eggs is actually part of a Ukrainian tradition of painting eggs to honor the gods and goddesses of fertility. Now, I think it's important to note that when we're talking about fertility here, we're not just talking about human fertility, although I'm certain that was also part of the celebration, but they're also asking for the fertility of the land, the fertility of anything they're depending on for their survival. Because if crops don't grow, and if the animals that they rely on for food stop producing, if humans were to stop producing, everything would fall apart rather quickly. So the act of painting the Easter eggs was a plea to the gods and goddesses of fertility to not abandon them in their hour of need, and to bless the year with good crops and, just an abundance of what they need to survive. Now, this did not become a tradition in the United States until Ukrainian immigrants brought it over, and people looked at their tradition of coloring eggs, and they were like, that's really awesome. I think I want to do that. And eventually it did become a thing in the United States. But that is just one tradition that has its roots deep in pagan traditions. Now, keep in mind, these pagan traditions predated Christianity, so it's not that anyone was trying to ignore the Christian significance of the holiday. It's simply that Christianity did not exist. And as mentioned, a lot of the holidays that we do celebrate that, some people want to turn into a Christian holiday, are co-opted from pagan traditions, and Easter is certainly a fine example of that. And I know I keep saying that, but the reason I keep saying that is because there are people who get offended when people don't make the Christian traditions the focus of the holiday. But the reality is, it was never a Christian holiday to begin with, and it was the church that absorbed the holiday and made it into something that it never was, until it was decided that by absorbing the holiday, it would increase basically the power and wealth and influence of the church. So, Easter dinner. Now, I guess, I did not know this, but I guess it's considered somewhat traditional to serve lamb on Easter. Okay. I think I've only had lamb like maybe once in my life, and the reason I've only had it once is because I didn't want to have it twice. And that's because I couldn't do it. Just like I could never eat alligator. I love alligators. I could never eat one. I just can't. Kind of the same thing with lambs. So this is directly linked to the ancient Jewish tradition of sacrificial lambs, and also the idea of Jesus being the Lamb of God. Now, if you remember from your Sunday school class, if you remember anything about the Last Supper, you know that during the Last Supper, which was a Passover feast, Jesus took the bread and he told his disciples, eat this bread, this is my body. And then he took the wine and said, drink this, this is my blood, which if I were there, I would imagine the disciples were like, what? That doesn't sound right. But, they just rolled with it. And I guess that's what you do when the host of your dinner is like, suggesting cannibalism. But anyway, so that was something that happened during a traditional Passover meal, and Jesus was said to be, quote, the Lamb of God. And by incorporating that into the Passover meal, in a sense, it co-opted a Jewish tradition and Christianized it and made it part of, the lore surrounding the Christian celebration of Easter. The Easter Bunny. Now, this is kind of like, I'm sure you know this. The Easter Bunny is often seen as another celebration of spring. Any depiction you've ever seen of an Easter bunny, they're usually in brightly colored clothing. They, they're in the tall green grass with their Easter eggs and their basket full of goodies and all this stuff. And it should be no surprise that Easter bunnies are seen as, rabbits are seen as symbols of fertility. And that shouldn't be a surprise because rabbits have a reputation for being prolific breeders. And it's the truth. They really are. So the image of rabbits breeding like rabbits and having all these little baby bunnies appearing in the spring of every year made the bunny a symbol of fertility, which then was again absorbed into the Easter traditions that we have today, which is why we have the Easter bunny. Now, I remember when I was a kid, I could never understand, because we were told, I was raised in church, and we were told that obviously the holiday of Easter should focus on Jesus, you know, just like the holiday of Christmas and all that. But at the same time, we were being given Easter baskets, and you know, the Easter bunny was, if only a small part, still part of the celebration of Easter. In fact, my sister's birthday is in April, and the year she was born very close to Easter. And every year for her birthday, because she was born so close to Easter, she was given a stuffed bunny of some kind, you know, really cute little plushies, all dressed adorably, so on. And that's kind of, you know, part of the reason why that happened was because the Easter bunny was part of Easter, even growing up. Now, Easter baskets, I did not know the origin of these things. I had heard a little bit about the other stuff along the way because, as I mentioned, this is a topic that has been covered extensively by lots of people, but this is the first time I've talked about it, I think. If I'm wrong, you can let me know that, but I did go through my videos, and I think this is the first time I've discussed this. Maybe. In any case, so I wondered, why do we have Easter baskets? That's kind of like, it's fun, but I've never understood why we had it, because again, you know, I was taught that Easter was entirely about celebrating the birth of Jesus, or the death and resurrection of Jesus, and I didn't understand where baskets full of candy fit into that. Well, let me tell you what I found out. So the Easter basket came from depictions of the goddess Astra, who probably could find her makeup brushes a lot better than I can, because she was probably more organized than me. I didn't organize my stuff before I started, and I'm sorry. Bear with me for just a second. I'm going to conquer this. I will. Okay, here we go. So, the goddess Astra was often shown cradling a woven basket in the crook of her arm, and in the basket would be all things spring, because again, she is the goddess of spring and fertility. I'm going to try something new with my eyeshadow as we're talking. Hopefully it goes well. I'm a little nervous. Anyway, so that is why we have Easter baskets. Now the stuff inside the baskets, all the just insane amount of candies and so forth that tend to be part of our Easter celebrations today, that came from the traditional, it was like a feast celebrating the end of Lent. So here you have the Easter celebration to celebrate the goddess Astra and spring and fertility. And then in the religious sense, you have the celebration of the end of Lent, which would, you know, it would be a time of indulging a little bit in some delicious things that maybe you did not have during Lent. And what some people would do is they would take a basket of delicious foods, and they would take it to the priest for a blessing. So that is another element of why we have Easter baskets, which was very interesting to learn about. I had no idea, but you know, there are a lot of things I had no idea about until fairly recently in my life. So, you know, it's to be expected. Okay, I'm going to pause this because this thing that I'm trying to do, so I'm using these water activated pigments, which are a lot of fun, but I've never used them before, and I'm on camera. And it's kind of intimidating to use a makeup product for the first time ever on camera. Oh wait, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to pause this and finish what I'm doing, and then I'm going to come back with some interesting facts about Easter, as well as a couple of funny stories from my own Easter celebrations. So I will be right back in just a moment. Hang around for the final look and for some, hopefully, a few laughs. All right, I'll see you in a minute. All right, I am back. So my eye makeup thing did not turn out like I want. I mean, it looks okay, I guess, but like, I'm like an impressionist painting. Like, from far away, I look decent, and then up close, I kind of look like a disaster. But, you know, it is what it is. So, I wanted to share with you some fun facts about Easter, as far as how we celebrate. The first chocolate egg. So chocolate eggs are like a staple of, oh my gosh, I've got a tag. Oh well. Are a staple of Easter baskets, right? Everybody gets the chocolate eggs. Now, like, I don't know what your favorite brand of chocolate eggs are, but those little, like the cheap ones, the little waxy ones, I used to hate it when I would get those. I mean, maybe that sounds like ingratitude, but I remember being a kid and getting those like really cheap chocolate eggs, and they really did feel like you were eating wax. It was just, ugh. But anyway, the very first ever chocolate Easter egg was made in Bristol, England, and it was made by what was at the time the largest factory in the world. And it was owned by the largest chocolate factory in the world, I should say, owned by the Fry family, and that was in 1873. Cadbury would not produce their own chocolate eggs until 1875, but their chocolate egg, for some unholy reason, the Cadbury cream egg is the most popular chocolate egg in the world, selling the most every Easter. They produce 500 million cream eggs every year, which is wild to me because, I mean, have you eaten a Cadbury cream egg? Do you like them? I think I've had maybe 2 in my whole entire life, because every once in a while I forget why I don't like them. And I'm like, you know, everybody makes such a big deal about these eggs. I think I'm going to try it and see what all the hype is about. And then I try it and I'm like, ugh, people actually like these? Like, they actually intentionally purchase these things every Easter? I don't understand it, but that's okay. I don't have to understand it. Another interesting fact that I read is in Germany, there are some places in Germany that do not allow dancing on Good Friday. And the reason for that is because they want to respect the fact that for Christians, which is the dominant religion in many places in the world, are mourning the death of Jesus on Good Friday, and they want to just defer to them on that. So no dancing in Germany on Good Friday. Now, there are also some places in Germany where it's not even legal to play music on Good Friday. Like if you're in a bar, like a public restaurant of any kind, and they're playing music, that is not allowed. And I don't know what the penalty is for that. I don't know if it's actually enforced, but I know that yes, there are places where playing music on Good Friday is a no-no, and if you do it, oh, you are going to hear about it. Trust me on that. Maybe. I don't know. As far as my own Easter experiences, so a couple funny stories. So this was many, many years ago. I was only so I'm 46 now. I was early 20s maybe. And I made some very poor choices when I was in my early 20s. And one of them was smoking. It's not something I'm proud of, but it is something that happened. One year, I had to work on Easter Sunday. And I stepped outside. I worked at a gas station convenience store. And I stepped outside to have a cigarette. And just as I did that, a church bus pulled into the parking lot, full of kids. And they're saying, oh, look, it's the Easter Bunny. Because I had worn like ears to work and I wore a tail just because, you know, I figured if I have to work on Easter Sunday, I'm going to have some fun with it. And I felt so bad that these kids pulled up in their church bus and watched the Easter Bunny have a cigarette. I was embarrassed. I really, truly felt bad. And needless to say, it did not happen again. And I haven't smoked for years and years, but that was something. And that happened a long time ago. And I still remember how I felt. I felt terrible. Another funny story. Oh, I've got a couple more. So another Easter, I worked in a grocery store bakery, and they made these bunny cakes, and they were just a round cake that they cut in half, you know, stood the two halves up on a tray, put frosting on it, little decorations, and made what looked like a bunny. So me, being the kind of person that I am, and believe me when I tell you I would probably still do this today, so I haven't changed in that regard. And this was, again, when I was in my mid-20s. I asked the cake decorator, would you be able to do this with a different type of cake? And she's like, well, sure, of course. So I had her make this cake. And I took it home to my mom and my sister. I think my dad was working at the time. And at the time of day that I came home with the cake. And I said, look, I brought a treat for us to enjoy. I hope you guys like it. So I gave them this bunny cake I'd had the cake decorator put together for me. And they sliced into it. And I had asked the cake decorator to use a red velvet cake so that when they sliced into this bunny, it was red, which I found it hilarious. My mom did not agree with me. Stephanie Lynn. That's what I still hear to this day. Stephanie Lynn. Anytime I do something that she doesn't approve of, which is a lot. And then finally, so I'm just gonna, this next story will show that some of these like weird, more macabre, that sense of humor kind of, I think it's genetic in our family. I don't know. But a couple of years ago, my niece, she was, let's see, she must have been 4 at the time, so this was about 3 years ago. So we had our family Easter dinner, and my mom had bought a lamb cake from an Italian bakery, and it was the cutest thing, and you know, it was so cute you almost hated to cut into it, but we did, and we all had a slice of lamb cake. And then my little niece, she starts asking to have different body parts of the lamb cake. She was like, can we eat the feet now? And then she's like, I want to eat the eyes. And I just thought it was so funny that this little child was specifically asking for certain body parts that she can eat. And I just, I'm a little weird like that, I guess. But anyway, so that is all I have for you today about Easter. I'm sure that there were some things that I missed because there always are. But, you know, it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of time travel we did today, and you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Easter holiday and where we get some of our traditions. Whatever you're celebrating this weekend, I know there are several holidays happening right now. I hope you enjoy it. Keep yourself safe. Be good to yourself and be good to each other. And as always, don't should on yourself or anyone else. And I will see you again next time, which will hopefully be next week, but who knows? I'm a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person. All right, I'll see you later. Have a great rest of your day. Be good to yourself. Bye.